I'm Brittany Pena.
I'm Roswell Olson.
I'm Maiken Harper.
Jody Cotton. All right, well, I'm going to start us out by talking about the humanist. We're a group of individuals, and we've come together to put the ideas and come to an agreement on matters that affect the modern world. We're trying to produce the kind of world we want to live in, a world in which peace and prosperity, freedom and happiness are widely shared. It's time for the widespread change of religious beliefs and traditional attitudes throughout the modern world. These religious philosophies are powerless to solve the issues of the 21st century. Seeking assistance from the divine deity is an outdated and unproven model. It creates false hopes and unrealistic expectations. The distinction between the secular and the sacred can no longer be maintained. The next century should be the humanistic century. Dramatic scientific, technological, and ever-accelerating social and political changes are happening all around us. Humanism is an ethical process through which we can all move above and beyond the diverse particulars, heroic personalities, dogmatic creeds, and customs of the past religions or the mere negation. While there is much we do not know, humans are responsible for what we are and what we become. No deity will save us. We must save ourselves. Man is at last becoming aware that he is alone and responsible for the realization of the world of his dreams, that he has within himself the power for its achievement. He must set intelligence and will to do the task. Humanity to survive requires bold and daring measures. We need to extend the uses of scientific method, not renounce them, to fuse reason with compassion in order to build constructive social and moral values. The ultimate goal should be the fulfillment of the potential for growth in each human personality, not for the favored few, but for all humankind. Only a shared world and global measure will suffice.
Wow, that was really good, Joe. Okay, I will go. I don't quite have the statement that Jody had, but we are proponents of religious freedom. Truly, this nation's most important export is its Constitution. Those great principles stand as a model for the rights and protection of all flesh. The religious values and political realities are so interlinked in the origin and perpetuation of this nation that we cannot lose the influence of Christianity in the public square without seriously jeopardizing our freedoms. This country was founded on the First Amendment reads that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The prohibition against an establishment of religion was intended to separate churches and government to prevent a national church of the kind still found in Europe, but not to prevent religious freedom. The free exercise of religion obviously involves both the right to choose religious beliefs and affiliations and the right to exercise or practice those beliefs. The inherent conflict between the precious religious freedom of the people and the legitimate regulatory responses of the government is the central issue of religious freedom. The problems are not simple, and over the years, the United States Supreme Court, which has the ultimate responsibility of interpreting the meaning of the lofty and general provisions of the Constitution, has struggled to identify principles that can guide its decision when government action is claimed to violate someone's free exercise of religion. The greatest infringements of religious freedom occur when the exercise of religion collides with the other powerful forces in society. Among the threatening collisions of the United States today are the rising strength of those who seek to silence religious voices in public debates and perceived conflicts between religious freedom and the popular appeal of newly alleged civil rights. In a democracy that is free and robust, an opinion is no more disqualified for being religious than for being atheist, psychoanalytic, or Marxist, or just plain dumb. It was the Christian principles of human worth and dignity that made possible the formation of the United States Constitution over 200 years ago, and only those principles in the hearts of a majority of our diverse population can sustain that Constitution today. Religious values and political realities are so interlinked in the origin and perpetuation of this nation that we cannot lose the influence of Christianity in the public square without seriously jeopardizing our freedom. This is a political fact, well qualified for argument in the public square by religious people whose freedom to believe and act must always be protected by what is properly called our first freedom, the free exercise of religion. The foundation of the United States Constitution, which we have all said was given by God to his children for the rights and protection of all flesh.
Okay. Was that everything, Razda?
Yes.
Okay, so some of the arguments that we have is that there is no credible evidence that life survives the death of the body. If men realize that their careers are limited to the world, that this earthly existence is all that they will ever have, then they are already more than halfway on the path toward becoming functioning humanists. No matter what their general attitude towards the universe and no matter what they think about deity. The reason why a rejection of immortality is so important is that for humanism, human problems in the here and now must be solved by human efforts in the here and now. There is no prospect for human problems to be solved or even simply made okay after we die in a cosmic system where good deeds are rewarded and bad deeds punished. Justice exists must be created by us. Belief in immortality, however, always allows for the belief in delayed justice. We should fail or not try very hard, as we find in the Second Humanist Manifesto. Human life has meaning because we create and develop our futures. Happiness and the creative realization of human needs and desires, individually and a shared enjoyment, are continuous themes of humanism. We strive for the good life here and now. To enhance freedom and dignity, the individual must experience a full range of civil liberties in all societies. The individual attains the good life by harmoniously combining personal satisfactions and continuous self-development with significant work and other activities that contribute to the welfare of the community. Religion and Christianity make humanity too complacent in this life to create the real individual and social change necessary to improve people's lives. Humanism, having its ultimate faith in humankind, believes that human beings possesses the power or potentially of solving their own problems through reliance primarily upon reason and applied with courage and vision.
Okay, and my two arguments, the first one is that the most vital human right is religious freedom. And in our nation, the most important export is the Constitution, which the principles stand as a model for the right and protection of all flesh. It teaches us in the Constitution that the most vital right is religious freedom. And most constitutions around the world and in other countries fall short of the protection that is needed. So we should be grateful that our United States government seeks to encourage religious freedom all over the world. And because we are so blessed with this religious freedom, and to have that and to have it in our Constitution, and we need to protect our religious freedom because it is the most vital human right. My second argument would be that religious freedom is the cornerstone of America's democracy. The guarantee for free exercise of religion, which is considered religious freedom, is the first expression in the First Amendment in the United States Constitution. The American colonies were originally settled by people who, for the most part, had come to this continent to be able to practice their religious faith without persecution, and with their successors deliberately placed religious freedom first in the nation's Bill of Rights. So it is that our nation's law formally declares the right to freedom of religion undergirds the very origin and existence of the United States. Our country was built upon religious freedom, and we need to protect it, and we need to be grateful that we live in a place where we are able to choose which religion we'd like to practice.
Rosla, I think it's to you and me now. One question I have for you is, in every society in recorded history has a moral code, and many of them don't have a Bible, or they have one that's completely different than the Christian Bible. If the book is the source of morality, how did all of these other societies come up with morality?
Okay, so before I answer that question, which I will, is it just you and I that are cross-examining, or do you pose the question and either one of us answers it? How is that? How is your understanding of the cross-examination thing?
I'm not totally sure.
The questions and everybody answers.
I think I'm okay with either party answering. What about the rest of you guys? I thought it was between you and I, but it
okay,
can be between anyone.
In answer to that question, I would say that every human being born on the earth, regardless of what religion they are, is given or has a conscience. And morality, moral values, comes from that conscience that everyone has. And the as our conscience becomes skewed as we get older and more things are thrown at us, that's where the moral disintegration, I believe, comes from. But the moral values itself come from the conscience that we are all born with, regardless of what religion or belief. We all have it. It's a fact. That's just the way it is.
Thank you. I think now you ask a question.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Right. So, so one question that I have, on page 1 of your manifesto, it says, today's man's larger understanding of the universe, his scientific achievements, and deeper appreciation of brotherhood have created a situation which requires a new statement of the means and purposes of religion. To establish such a religion is a major necessity of the present. We therefore affirm the following. Religious humanists regard the universe as self-existing and not created. Now, if you are not religious, why are you a religious humanist? is that not, in a sense, you, the pot, calling the kettle black by saying no religion, but yet you are trying to find a religion?
Well, in our defining of religion, we've defined religion to include humanist, which does not include a deity, but it includes us being responsible for our own fate, for our own successes in life, and for our own progression. So we've defined religion to encompass this view as well.
Okay.
Okay. Next question. Our country leaders represent the majority vote. You're able to vote, and the citizens within your religious organization are able to vote. Why should your morals guide the countries if they're no longer the majority? If you've made the choice and you're enabling your right to vote.
So your question is, why should religious morals lead the country?
If that's no longer the majority view. If the majority view is saying, such as homosexuals should be able to marry, then why is religion stepping in if that's no longer the majority?
Wow, Joe.
Oh, sorry.
That's a really hard question. Oh, goodness. Let me think about that for a minute.
I don't mind answering it if you want, Rosla.
Help me out, Brittany. Go ahead if you have thoughts.
The first thing that came to my mind is because our country was founded on religious. Our Constitution was written, and at the very first thing, and the first freedom in the Bill of Rights is religious freedom, and I think that sometimes the world is ever so changing that we need to make sure that we go back to the basics of what our country is built upon, and so I think that's why religious is still so important, because we can shift so far from what it was actually built upon, and I think we need to remember the foundation of what our country was built upon. Hopefully that answers it.
That's a great answer, Brittany. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was awesome. Okay, so should I ask one more question here?
Yeah, only at 5 minutes. So
in your manifesto number 2, it talks about traditional moral codes and newer irrational codes both fail to meet the pressing needs of today and tomorrow. So if the moral code that the nation was built on don't meet the needs anymore, I mean they're basic moral values, what moral codes do you propose that we establish that are going to be better than the ones that the Founding Fathers established?
well, right now I think we're defining those moral codes. Some things haven't been defined, and we're pushing the Constitution to determine what those definitions are. Going back to homosexual marriage, that hasn't been truly defined in our Constitution, and we are going back to our Founding Fathers with the First Amendment and finding that it doesn't stand, that that there shouldn't be freedom for all individuals of every sexual orientation and every gender to be able to fulfill and pursue their happiness, not defined by each individual religious group, but founded upon what is accepted as the majority vote and going back to the Constitution.
Do you believe that morals that may have been good morals 10 years ago probably aren't good morals today?
We define in an ever-changing society that we need to be following and looking at at what is going on in the individual time. Now I could come back to you with the last question that I asked and say, how do you define whose religious beliefs? Because there's so many different religious beliefs out there. Do your religious beliefs change, or are they staying constant?
My personal religious beliefs stay constant.
So regarding marriage, has that stayed constant?
Yes, that has stayed constant.
Then how would you explain within your own religion that marriage was between more than one woman and a man at certain points, and now it's being redefined as between one man and one woman, and now you're trying to say that you're taking that religious belief, changing it, which a few minutes ago you said they're eternal truths that don't change, but now you've changed it, and you're saying that our belief goes, and we shouldn't be able to follow our individual feelings of wanting to have a family and pursue that happiness between two women or two men.
You are really good, Jody.
Sorry, I hate this.
I feel myself getting really
I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
We're at 9.5 minutes. We only have to go for another 30 seconds.
Boy, that, I plead the Fifth Amendment. Oh, goodness. Okay, so, you know, I don't think quickly enough on my feet to know how I would actually answer that question. So somebody else jump in. How would we answer that question if it was really posed to us? Because it is a change in, I don't know, it's not necessarily a change in moral values because it's, but you're right, I don't know. I don't think I have an answer to that.
And sorry, I'm no help, Rosla. I have no idea. And Jody, I am like so impressed because that was awesome.
That was awesome. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Mike, and what do you think?
I'm with you guys.
So Jody, that was a great question. How would you answer it?
I'm not sure. I don't know, but when that was just a question that came to me as when I was reading Elder Oak's comments that, you know, marriage is between one man and one woman, and I thought, well, that wasn't the case, but then there was extenuating circumstances in that during that time in our country, it was legal to kill Mormons, so the men were being persecuted and killed, and it was also very difficult for a single widowed woman to have support and be able to maintain her home and her children and have that financial stability. And so I think part of it is the church changed that policy to protect the families at that time, given that our country was killing Mormons legally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I could see definitely how that would be a hot debatable thing. So good job, Jody.
Yes.
Sorry. I was mouthing sorry after I.
No, I thought it was awesome. Oh my goodness. I think it probably evoked the feelings in me that Sister Meeker wanted us to understand are really there when we advocate for the family.
Yes.
Okay. So please tell me we're done with round 3.
We can be done with round 3 if you want. We've passed our time.
Okay, round 4.
Awesome. All right. Well, for our closing statement, this is what I have to say. Today's human's larger understanding of the universe, his scientific achievements, and deeper appreciation of brotherhood have created a situation which requires a new statement of the means and purpose of religion. Such a vital, fearless, and frank religion capable of furnishing adequate social goals and personal satisfactions may appear to many people as a complete break with the past. While this age does owe a vast debt to the traditional religions, it is nonetheless obvious that any religion that can hope to be a synthesizing and dynamic force for today must be shaped for the needs of this age. To establish such a religion is a major necessity of the present. It is a responsibility which rests upon this generation to help the world to prosper with shared beliefs and values. Values that are grounded in the philosophy of the Enlightenment, informed by scientific knowledge, and driven by a desire to meet the needs of the people here and now. To have world peace, all united with the same beliefs, focusing on a world in which peace, prosperity, freedom, and happiness are widely shared. We believe in optimism rather than pessimism, hope rather than despair, learning in the place of dogma, truth instead of ignorance, joy rather than guilt or sin, tolerance in the place of fear, love instead of hatred, compassion over selfishness, beauty instead of ugliness, and reason rather than blind faith or irrationality. We believe in the common moral decencies, integrity, honesty, truthfulness, responsibility. Humanist ethics is amenable to critical, rational guidance. There are normative standards that we discover together. Moral principles are tested by their consequences. Overall, we recognize that we, human beings, are by far the most sophisticated moral actors on the earth. We can grasp ethics. We are not to be the only moral subjects. For example, other animals deserve moral consideration too. But we have a unique capacity for moral choice, to act in the interest of welfare, advancement and fulfillment, or against it. To act well, we must take responsibility for ourselves and others, not for the sake of preferential treatment in any afterlife. Even if we believed in it, that motivation wouldn't make our actions good, but because the best we can do is to live this life as brilliantly as we can. That means helping others in community, advancing society, and flourishing at whatever we do. We find value in ourselves and in each other, respecting the personhood and dignity of fellow human beings, not because we are made in the image of something else. We are a product of evolution, not the product of a divine plan, but because of what we are, a sentient feeling species with value and dignity inherent in each individual. There is no reason to believe that meaning has to come from a supreme being. If you can write a sentence on a paper, which isn't nonsense, then you can create meaning. There is no divine plan or purpose. The humanist recognizes, but we make our own purposes, tell our own stories, set our own goals. This gives life meaning.
Our closing statement is, religious values and political realities are so interlinked in the origin and perpetuation of this nation that we cannot lose the influence of Christianity in the public square without jeopardizing our freedoms. Religious freedom is the most important, vital human right, and religious freedom is the cornerstone of American democracy. We must protect our religious freedom because our country was built upon it, and it was what the American colonies were originally settled by people who were looking for religious freedom. We must protect it by standing up for the right to practice and believe in Christianity. And that's all I have for mine.
That was good, Brittany.
Nice job, guys. False doctrine, everything I said, just so you know.
Yeah, me too. Sorry to attack. Don't want to do it.
Okay.
I'm assuming we have an HOA next week as well.
Oh, we aren't quite done yet. We have to do a wrap-up.
Oh.
Okay. So I'll ask, do you think the authors of your articles were taking the moral high ground or making a moral statement? Why or why not? Sorry.
I believe that the author of mine, I mean, of course, it's Elder Dallin H. Oaks, and so who can argue with Elder Oaks because he's kind of an authority, but I definitely think he was taking the high ground. He talked a lot about, let me get to where the 5 points that he gave at the end of his talk were on how to conduct ourselves in with the whole discussion stuff, and he said that we need to speak with love, always showing patience, understanding, and compassion. We must not be deterred or coerced by silence, by the kind of intimidation that he described. We must insist on our freedom to preach the doctrines of our faith. As advocates of the obvious truth that persons with religious positions or motivations have the right to express their religious view in public, we must nevertheless be wise in our political participation. And we must be careful never to support or act upon the idea that a person must subscribe to some particular set of religion in order to qualify for a public office. So I think he was being very, what was the word? Taking the high moral ground.
I'm not sure ours took quite the high moral ground. I felt like there was some things that were more attacking of religious beliefs. How did you feel, Maiken?
Well, we have various authors here. Like, there's a lot of people that wrote this, and so, but the majority of all their perspectives were kind of the same, and I agree that they're more attacking. They didn't have a lot of logic behind what they said. They would kind of just like say a statement without having reason or proof of it. So that was kind of why I felt, I feel the same way.
Yeah, I felt like they'd make a statement that was attacking, and then kind of at the end summaries, they'd say, oh, but you know,
right.
Kind of try to take this non-confrontational, but in the writing itself, I found it more confrontational.
Right, I agree.
The last question was, are religious folks the only ones with values and morals? Can morality exist without religion? Why or why not?
Is that for any of us?
Anybody, I think.
Raza kind of answered this earlier, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like what she said just, well, she was kind of directing it more towards the religion perspective, but I think that people can have moral values without religion. I just think it's a lot of the moral values come from religion, and so without it, it would be very difficult to have that direction and understanding of what a moral value is. I mean, of course, we know right from wrong, but I think it's getting to the point where we don't know what right from wrong is because we don't have any guidance without religion. I don't know if that made any sense.
That made a lot of sense, Mike. That was good.
Yeah, Mike, and I agree. When you were talking, I'm like, that's exactly, I think, the right answer for it. Because when she first asked it, I didn't know how to answer it. But I think you were spot on, and I really have nothing else to add to it just because you did such a good job of answering that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I thought you did a great job. And we know from the scriptures that we're all born with the light of Christ. So we all, as Rosla said, we all have a conscience. And so we do have that ability. But then as the world is changing, it's becoming more like, I think it was Moroni that said, what's right seems wrong and what's wrong seems right, you know, in the last days. And then, you know, last night we read in our family scripture study Moroni 7, and that talks about how do you know if things are good, you know, and so we do have that, and everybody has that. It doesn't only exist if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's out there for everybody. It's just not everyone knows how to recognize it the same way, especially as the world is diverging from the Lord's ways.
Well, and I think, too, for me, I know that religion gives me a, and we've all said this before, but it gives me a direction in my values, and it gives me a core set of values to hang on to, and not, because I think without religion, it's easier to get swept up in that wind of doctrine, that comes and goes, and oh, well, I like that. That fits into my life right now, so maybe I'll adopt that value. Where I think your religious beliefs keep you more grounded in your value system.
Well, and I think as we hit the latter days, it's getting harder and harder because the adversary is relying more on half-truths, so without religion and our prophets to help keep us on track, those half-truths can seem very true initially, and we need to be able to realize if you put a half-truth and a lie together, it makes it a lie. It's not true. But sometimes you don't know that the second part's not true, and so it is important to have our prophets help guide us through these tumultuous times.
Agreed.
And that was the last question. So I think we're all done.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to stop the broadcast, and then we meet next week, right?